Looks all right from the distance on
You've
the track,
always-
but up close, it's a bit not.
You've always had great-looking hot rods, mate. This is definitely one of the coolest, though, Warren. I think as far as the cars you've had, this is definitely one of your better looking.
Yeah, well, I like it. It sort of looks tough, I guess,
Yeah.
you know, and you've got to feel good about the paint job. It just gives you a good feel about the car. It's been an exceptional car for us. Young Jordan, he just can't believe it. He said, this thing just goes. He said, we got it wrong with the first night at Napa, big time. We all made the wrong call.
A lot of people did. Yeah.
We were so wrong. But there's a pretty cool shot of him when he looped her up in turn 1 and 2, and
Stood on it.
I thought the thing was going over backwards, and he got it down and drove off, and he was on the fence. The back of the push bar and the tail tank was all just covered in mud, you know. So that's how high up.
He's a good racer, man.
Yeah, he's a
Clearly you
pepper.
believe in him.
I said to you many times. I said to a lot of people, the kid's way underrated, and for the amount of racing that he doesn't miss the podium, you know, top
Yeah.
5 much, you know, against the best in Australia. So I rate him highly, and I just wish, you know, that I was younger and wasn't doing what I'm doing back home, because I'd like to really put him on the road full time. But I just got to get my priorities right and balance the money up too, because as I said, I spent a lot of money back home, and I need to make sure that's right first. And I thought, well, best just get rid of it all and get home sorted out big time, and then I can turn around and reassess things.
When did you go? When was the moment you went from 45? It was always A1 if it wasn't 45, but then to go to 11. When did that happen and why?
Back in Darwin, when we started racing 360s, Brooke David, who was supplying me the 360, he was number 10, and he said, well, why don't you get number 11? I go, well, Steve Kins is number 11, let's go with that. So we did, you know.
45 was pretty iconic,
Yeah,
though.
yeah, I like the 45. We did that. We did the 65 as well for my dad.
Yeah.
And because my dad was 65, we did that with young Jason McIver.
Yeah.
He ran a 65 car. But yeah, the 11, and it's sort of stuck since then. I don't, you know, I don't get attached to too much, really. You know, they could be junk. There could be a really good car today, and it's junk tomorrow. So as long as it looks okay and goes okay is the main thing. There's
some really iconic sponsors and names and things in my life over the years that I'll always think back to. And PDQ, I mean, what a fantastic... It was pretty damn quick, right? Was that what that stood for?
That's what it stood for, yeah. He was a house builder, and that's what he called himself. He could build them pretty quick, so...
and it was pretty cool for your name as well, because you were pretty damn quick. Well, that's true, man.
Well, Jeff was... He's, you know, you look back through life of the people that actually made you.
Yeah.
He was the sponsor that made my race.
So tell me who Jeff is.
Jeff Fleming, yeah. From PDQ. He
big black beard, yeah?
Oh, man. I remember we sat down in Alice Springs once, and we're at the airport. He came down, this is when I was first racing, an Alfa Romeo, a really old monorail Curtis Craft speaker, and...
Bob Holt had the safety boots that look a lot like yours right there.
These, yeah. Anyhow, and he came down to watch. He knew nothing about racing, and he goes, well, how much does it cost to get involved in this sort of thing to help you out? I said, well, the Hoosier Tyres had sort of just come onto the market then. We were running M&H's 6 months before, you know.
Yep.
Anyhow, so Hoosier, I said, well, look, 3 or 4 tyres a year, you know, like, they were about $250 a tyre back then, $200.
Early 90s, yeah.
So $1,000 a year, and I go, yeah, no drama. Well, we did I think I've said this to you before in an interview, we did a bit of a tally up one night when on the drink, and he tipped in well over $1 million into my racing.
Wow.
Yeah. Every time, you know, like, you had to have 2 new cars, and Murphy was involved. Murphy used to give us the chassis, but then all the other stuff had to be bought. And you have an engine problem, you just buy a new one. Like, there was no, hang on, let me think about it.
Yeah.
He was such a tremendous help, and whenever you wanted something, you know, he just said get it. So that was really, really cool.
My first memories of you are certainly the Aussie title when you came down to Claremont, and we had that big house brick phone. We were doing the guys in the club rooms listened to our commentary of you winning the title. I remember walking across the track and saying, you guys should be pretty proud. This guy's just absolutely kicked their ass. And I remember hearing the roar in the club rooms.
Yeah. That was good. Like, you know, it definitely hard to win on when you got the top drivers in Australia. We were out of WA at that time, you know. That's
Wasda was the superpower.
Neville, Lancey, Watsons, you know, they were Figlamani.
Yep.
they were all good, and you come into their home track, and to beat them was really good. And I went there a few meetings early, and I was driving one of Murphy's cars, and I said, Murphy, what are we going to do? He said, just go drive the car. He said, just learn the track and all that. And then it came to the Laurie Matthews Memorial, which was the week before the national championship. He said, all right, bring your car in here. And he spent about, 3-4 hours on it, mucking around with it. And he goes, right, let's go race it. And the thing was a rocket ship, straight up. So he, very, very smart man to have on your side too.
30 years ago that was. And time does heal all wounds. And you look back on some things, I guess, and you smile, even if it's with a wry smile. I don't imagine there's ever been times in your life you've been called a lot of things, but being called Buffalo Bill has to rank right up there. And that was something Con was burnt up about your solicitor's letter saying, all right, well, if you're not going to, you can't promote me as Australian. I mean, that was a long time ago, but you got to laugh now, right?
Yeah. It was a way around what was going on at the time. There was obviously some legal situations that it came about, and he just found a way out of trying to promote the hell out of it, and he just called me Buffalo Bill, and that's
there he is, the national champ, Buffalo Bill. You got to admit, it's a pretty funny name to choose.
Yeah,
he could have called a lot of other things.
Yeah,
wasn't the top end Terminator. You and Jonesy had a particularly epic battle in that title. Like, he was the guy to beat from our point of view, wasn't he?
Yep. Yeah, he probably did the wrong thing to me, which fired me up a lot. He hit me up the arse in the pole shot.
Yes, he did.
And I was as cranky, like I came in and I'm letting Murph have it, and he says, you think you're the only bloke who wants to win this race? And I said, no, but you don't have to drive like that. And he said, he drove like that to piss you off, and I said, that's the worst thing you could have done, So then we got Murph said, just go out there and drive your race, and I always go to the hardest I can possibly go to in those feature races.
Yeah.
And we got the first start, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. Let's see if we can stay here, because it usually... And I knew Jones would be running a softer tyre. Anyhow, the second restart he got me, and he was driving off into the sunset, and I thought, he's going to be over at Rottnest Island, so he's that far in front. And then I was just watching, and in the end I said, well, just going to sit back and wait and see what happens. Maybe there's going to be a restart. And after about 10 laps, I could see he wasn't getting any further ahead, and I thought, And then my tyre was starting to warm up.
Yeah.
And going, and that was back then when you used to have called McCreary's, and I had a GS3 on, I think, at that time, and there's like this slab here that was hard as hell. And anyhow, but it come good, and then we hauled him in, and then we got into traffic, and he had to get out of the throttle, and he had a big push, and we just went under him, and that was basically it from then on in. But we had a moment in that race where I hit a patch of water getting into turn 3, and I couldn't see. And I had the old mud eater going flat out.
Yeah, you're one of the few people that ran mud eaters.
Yeah, and I had that going flat out to clear, and I slid nearly right up to the fence. And I remember on the replay when I watched it, Con was saying, something Ekins has just spun it or something. No, Ekins has just saved it, and he's still within 2 or 3 car lengths of what they used to call Jonesy then?
The Quiet Achiever.
Yeah, or something, the Quiet Achiever, Graham Jones or whatever, anyhow. And we just stuck with him, and I thought, this is going to be a race, and that it turned out to be a bit of a battle, but we got there.
There's it's unfair to mention 1 or 2 guys in WASDA because it was phenomenal. There was at least 15 guys that were just on their game, but if I compare the 3 in Figlamini, Neville Lance and Graham Jones, they each had very different ways of going about things.
Yeah.
But fiercely competitive, and 3 of the best West Australia and Australia's ever produced. Keith Mann before that, John Fenton before that.
Yeah, they were good, but they were at the end of their cycle where we were coming through, so I never got to race Keith Mann from memory, but, there was many drivers there. Gary Dillon, Phil Areen, they were all Australian quality drivers,
Yeah, absolutely.
But Lancey, he's just a throttle stomper. I love him, me and him have a very good relationship even after what happened in Darwin, and we worked through that, and it was all good. But Figlamini is a very technical, crafted driver. Jonesy is very, very methodical about how he goes, his preparation and all that sort of stuff. So and then you just had this old rum drinker from Darwin that come along and just upset the apple cart, you know.
Blakey didn't drink rum, did he?
Blakey used to drink. He's the bloke who taught me how to drink it.
Even Holty was pretty quick around Claremont.
Yeah, he put in some good laps there. He had a lot of car trouble when he went down there once. I think it was that time. He was having engine trouble and stuff like that. But yeah, and then he went on to win one later on too, you know. So.
And around that time that you're talking about as well, Stephen Arrigo was very, very quick in sprint cars. Like there was always been a territory influence on Claremont.
Yeah. Well, he had a link up, I think, with Kendricks at that time.
Yeah, he did.
He was a good peddler in his day.
When you look back on it now, we're at a different period in our life now, Warren, and you look back, I think how privileged I was to even been around that era in the late 80s, early 90s and mid-90s at Claremont.
Very much so, because as you just pointed out in the truck up there, all the amount of spares that you've got to take to the racetrack, like we never ever took a diff, or I never had a rear end spare, couldn't afford it to start with, but you just never thought about it, you know. Front axle, you had one beam there but no ends on it, you know. You had enough to sort of get you out of real trouble if you ever need it, but they just drive different today. They're driving harder, faster, you know, and it's like a take no prisoners attitude, you know. They just give it to it, you know, and they're not. Some of them drive recklessly, but not the majority of them don't. And it's just how it goes. That they're racing faster, closer, and hell, things go wrong, you know. And when you tear up now, the other things are a lot lighter than what they used to be. They're just so many parts just break now, you know. There
was never any doubt speed cars were going to be colossal at Adelaide. There was never any doubt that track was going to suit them. Yeah. You had to see a bit of it, I would imagine. The wheelies and the twisted up chassis and they were always going to be cool.
Yeah. And we were one of the people that got it wrong on the first night and trying to keep the front end on the ground. And Jordan come in, he said, this thing needs a dose of Valium, you know, like it's out of control. And I said, yeah. So we went away and thought about it, and we got it a lot closer the second night, but we were still off a little bit in the feature because we were so gun shy of how good the track came in for the feature on the first night.
Yep.
Because it did go away a little bit, and then it come back as the sun went down. The moisture started to come back up. Man, we just missed that, and so on the Thursday night, we got it really good, I thought, in the heat race, and he won that. But in the feature, or even actually in the dash, I thought this track's coming in again, you know. So we freed it up some more, and we went the wrong way. So then we tightened it up for the feature, but we didn't go far enough. And he said I was just defending, and he ran fifth, and he said I was just holding my own there, Warren. He said I couldn't race it, you know. And so we were all G'd up for the Friday night. I think we got a handle on this now, you know.
Yeah.
And never happened due to the rain, so that was a shame.
Comparison is the thief of individuality, Warren. It'd be like, Warrenne Ekins was never as good as Michael Figlamini, or Graham Jones was never as good as Neville Lance, or Napa is not as cool as Tolma, or Tolma's not as cool as the Motorplex. Bullshit. It's all fantastic that we've had that and that we do have that. That Adelaide event is phenomenal as a concept.
Yeah.
Like, what a concept. To be at Supercars, ACDC, Lenny Kravitz, Supercross. What a great way to showcase our sport. Yeah,
no, for sure. It's definitely a forward move. I think they've got another year contracted.
I hope
After
so.
That, I thought it was a 3-year deal.
I hope so.
And hopefully, I'd like to see it actually, you know, taken over in a few other states the same way, and
imagine it at Bathurst.
Try and lift the speedway into the main spotlight a bit more, because you can tell by the crowd they had there was, you know, pretty good.
Yeah.
So obviously people are interested in it when they see it, you know. So.
And look, it's different. Remember, like, the Burswood Dome, right? Is a great example. The Burswood Dome was never Claremont. It was never supposed to be Claremont. It was just cool. It was something different.
Different, yeah. That was different. It's
the wheel stand you pulled in that practice. I remember we had all the TV cameras there. We're like, God, no one's even turned a practice lap. I hope this is any good. I remember you just stood on it, and it stood up in the back wheels. And
yeah, well, Murphy made a special car for that. He said, we need to build a car for it. I said, okay. So he did that, and the first night he said, well, you can have a go at setting it up if you want. I said, okay. How to go, and it was too hooked up, and he said, right here, let's tame it down. This way Murph was real good to have him in the corner.
So let's talk about Murph. Been a great friend of yours, and you really didn't get Warrenne Ekins without Jeff Murphy.
That's right.
And that's been that way for well over 30 years.
Yeah.
The Mad Professor.
Jeff's been there, well, not from day one of my speed car days, but it was after I Well, before I won the Australian title in Darwin, I'd already bought a Jeff Murphy car.
Yep.
And I bought two of them. Actually, it was my second car. And the relationship formed from there. And then after we won in Claremont, he did a deal with me. He said, well, as long as you keep racing midgets, I'll keep building your cars for free, the chassis.
Yep.
And then, and he supported me right through. And not only that, he'd come to the racetracks, he'd come to special meetings. And I felt like we had an unfair advantage because that guy, his knowledge is just, he's insurmountable how much he knows.
It's pretty evil of you to recruit the West Aussie #1 dude to beat the West Aussies, mate.
Well,
Lancey has a good relationship with him as well.
See, none of those guys were really using him back then either. So, if he was crewing for Lancey or that at the time, he would have stayed there. But there was no one that had him on the team. And I asked him, would you come and crew for us? And he said, yeah. But they interviewed him. He said, look, I sort of hope a West Aussie wins it because I'm very parochial.
Yep.
But he said, I got the current Australian champion driving my car, so I want him to win too. So, he was probably caught between a rock and a hard place, I want to say, but he handled that well. And, and we just continued on as friends and racing together ever since,
Warrenne, the sport nationally, chariots, high limit in Perth, Speed Week, Classic, President's Cup, King's Challenge, Toowoomba's on fire, Western Sydney Speedway's back now, Murray Bridge is rocking, Mildura here, for example, is doing a great thing. How do you see the sport right now?
Well, I can't believe how would you say, productive or how it's grown in such a short time. The amount of money that's been injected into the sport is phenomenal. I just hope it can keep going with the world economy the way it is. You just don't know from one year to the next where that's going to go, but right now it's really, I'd say in the last 3 years, 4 years, it's just growing exponentially every year. It's just fantastic.
What they're doing in the West has been the benchmark, I'm pretty sure, like with the TV coverage for sprint cars and the Maddinson Toyota series and,
high limits now, what a deal that is, I went to it last year to watch it. I don't know what date it's on this year, but I'd like to go and watch it again. I think I should be able to. I'm just not sure about the dates with the Classic, and I think they all tie in. I think that's okay, but I'd like to go and watch that again.
It's going to be a great year. We started off in early November here with Warrnambool, with Avalon, with Mount Gambier, with Murray Bridge, then the Napa. Now we're here at Mildura. Next weekend is the Max race and also the Fireball at Avalon. Then we start Speed Week on the 26th. Then the Power Tour starts on the 3rd. We're racing now from early November right through to the end of January with elite blue ribbon racing on both sides of the country.
Yeah.
And started back with chariots before then in September.
Yeah. Well, chariots is, each year we worry about that because it's a long way for people to come and to stay, and they've managed to program it now, so they really only need to be there for just over a week, whereas before it was spread out a little further and it was closer to being in season. So the cost of accommodation and airfare was through the roof, so they just pushed it back out into September.
Yep, which is away from Knoxville as well. And,
the price, the airfares dropped, accommodation dropped, and they just re-slotted the racing, so they weren't there for as long, but they still got in, I think, 4 shows in that same period where they used to get 5, right? You could come a week earlier and do another show if you wanted to.
Yep.
So the amount of racing was still there in the same time frame. It's just how they re-slotted it all. It just worked out well. So, this year they had all the good guys there again. So, and no one really dominated. Lockie started off doing really well, and then, just Corbett won one night from memory. Goodyear won one night.
Young Luke Storer ended up winning the deal, which is great for the sport. Daniel Storer.
It sort of spread it around a bit. So, and it was good racing too. So, it was only one night the track was a bit RS because it just took rubber, and they had trouble with the grader that day. Normal story. Something lets them down, and then it happens everywhere. They have a breakdown somewhere, and they don't get the water into it. I can't remember exactly what happened, but it was the second night, and it was the second night of racing is always going to be slicker, isn't it? So. Yeah.
You sound like you still love this sport, mate.
Yeah, look, there's nothing wrong with the sport. What's wrong with it is this bloke just needs a break from it for a little while. I've been racing, I was only thinking about it the other night, I've been racing since I was 7, so, now
30 years.
Well, I'm 64, so, it's either I've been racing or been involved in racing, through motocross and then fender benders and then into speed cars and then sprint cars, and there's nowhere else really to go in. Once you've had one of these things and you ever race one, you don't really want to get... The midgets are still good, don't get me wrong. They're elbows up. And one thing, if I wanted to do something, I would have loved to race Chili Bowl now that I've seen it, but that's not going to happen. You go there, you got to be on your A game, and you got to be so good, and that's long gone from me. So I still go over there, enjoy watching it. I think it's fantastic.
Shout out to Bobby Holt. I can't get him out of my mind. He used to race with thongs, didn't he, back in the day, I'm pretty sure?
Yeah, well, it's really funny that you bring that up, because we just did a memorial thing for a friend of mine. She died, died of leukemia, and I hadn't driven a car in 12 years. So, and she told me before she died, a long time, she said, when I die, I want you to pull me on the track, and I want you to burn me into the track, and I want you to do some donuts. And I was okay, and I'd sort of forgotten about it a bit. Yeah. The girls, their daughters, reminded me of it.
Yep.
And I didn't have a car because it was all down here.
Yep.
So I said, what I'll do, I'll jump in. Peter McIver had a car.
Yep.
And it's had a LS 360 or whatever they are.
Yep.
So I jumped in that, and the night before it rained so heavily, we couldn't even start the car. We had to start it in the pits, drop it into gear, and drive out onto the track. But when I went to get in the car, I didn't bring any race boots because we weren't going to do it. Lucky I just left the suit in there and the helmet in the back seat.
Yep.
So I went in my socks.
Perfect.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a Bobby Holt feeling there. I got out, and you can't believe how much crap comes in the floor of the car when it's wet like that. So, yeah, and that was good. And I felt happy that I'd done that for my friend, So
it's good to see you, Warren.
Thank you. Good to see you too, Wayne.
This car is for sale, by the way. We'll talk about that shortly.